Hey, what's up, everybody? Good to be with you tonight once again. We are in guidepost number 6 tonight on building a healthy missional community. This is a huge component of making sure that we are on mission and for the cause of Christ. And it's simply this: display and declare the gospel. It's pretty simple. Display and declare the gospel. So if you're anything like me, you're thinking, okay, what he's fixing to talk about, evangelism, sharing the gospel, sharing my faith, and it horrifies me. So I want to say a couple things really quickly. If we're going to be effective at sharing and displaying the gospel, number one, we're going to have to be comfortable with our gospel story. I want to encourage you that every time that we meet up, gather up like we are tonight, somebody needs to be talking about their testimony. And I know that for depending on the dynamics of the group, I know that there's some of us that really like to share our story, okay? But there are others of us that we never do. And so let me just kind of lovingly encourage you. If we can't share our gospel story, how we come to faith, somebody might call it a testimony. If we can't share how we were once away from Christ, Christ intervened. We are now walking with Christ, and He's transforming me as the journey goes. If we can't get comfortable sharing how that happened for us with one another in the room that you're in right now, it is almost a guarantee that if you can't share it in this room, you will never share it outside this room. Okay? Which means this, is that now that we've developed a people group, and now that we've developed adjusting our lives to that mission of that people group, that if you're not comfortable sharing the gospel in the room that you're in right now, it's going to be quite likely that you will never share the gospel in that missional community flow. Or let me say, in that missional flow, okay? So those people that you're trying to reach for the gospel will never hear the gospel because we're not comfortable sharing the gospel. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So get real comfortable, whether it's Galen teaching his class, whether it's Jeff and Thomasine teaching theirs, Caitlin Curtis stepping up, whoever's running the conversation for the night. I know this from experience that when it comes to testimony or somebody sharing their gospel message, number one, they'll testify and it's not the gospel, or number two, people won't say anything. And so I strongly encourage you to just bust down the door, to be the one to stand up and say, I haven't shared my gospel story in a while. I want to share that tonight. And I want you to help me articulate it so that it makes sense. And let's practice it and get fluent in the gospel when we are in our groups like we're in right now. So encourage you to do that. You'll never display and declare the gospel if you're not comfortable, first of all, doing that in front of believers. And then secondly, I'd like for you to think about this particular point, less about standing up in front of an entire group and giving, the gospel or sharing the gospel with the eloquence of Apostle Paul, let's say. I don't want you to think about that. I'd rather you think about it in a sense of giving an explanation for the hope that's in you. And that's what 1 Peter 3:15 says. Be prepared to give an explanation for the hope that is within you. Now, I think this is fascinating. Jesus, when He called His disciples, they weren't necessarily believing that He was the Messiah when they called Him, or when Jesus called Him. It was a process. Some scholars even argue that they don't really come to knowledge of who He is until the very end of His ministry, after the ascension. And so what does that mean? That means for 3 years, they're hanging out together and doing life together and so on, and they're not yet followers of what we would call Jesus from the standpoint of the cross and resurrection. It's confusing to them. I mean, they're literally saying, you're not going to die. You can't die or all this ends. They didn't understand. And so it wasn't until the very last that they embraced Christ as the Lamb that was slain. Embraced let me say it this way, the impact of the resurrection and the cross of Jesus Christ. So they walked together with them. And in that journey, their faith was developed. In much the same way, that's what we're doing when we are engaged in mission with the people group that you've selected. You've got a people, you've got kind of rallying your life or structuring your life around that mission, and now you're going to journey for a while with a group of people, and you're going to build a relationship, and you're going to be in situations where you can give an explanation for the faith that's in you. And I hope that you're prepared to do that, okay? We're ultimately, the goal here is that thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We're engaging, and then we're discipling along the way. And the way that we're doing it is by serving and loving this people group that we're called to. Really briefly, let me give an example, okay? When I first got into coaching, I would have not been able to articulate this, but I can now. One of the pieces of mission that is in my heart deeply is the idea of being a father to the fatherless. Okay, after 10 years of coaching, baseball, basketball, whatever, what has always been a motivator for me is to be, whether it be a father to the fatherless, or whether it be operate in a role model type way to guys who already have fathers active in their lives, and to come and to be a part of that with them. But ultimately, it's never been about putting a bunch of kids at into college to play baseball, or for baseball to be somehow a part of a person's life for the rest of the. That's not. I love baseball, and I think it's important, but that's really never been my motivator. My motivator has been to use the game of baseball to develop men. That's really what it's been. And I couldn't articulate that when I started. I don't know that I knew that when I started. But as we've been processing here about missional community, man, I'm beginning to see more of what really has motivated at least me to be on mission in that way. When I coached the girls last year, the motivators weren't any different. Matter of fact, I could talk to you about our assistant coach, Brianna. I could talk to you about Cindy and the loss that both of them experienced. Man, I wanted to be there for them in some way. And then I began to think about the girls and their home situations, and I'm like, man, if I could fill that role for at least a season, or praise. But it wasn't. It had nothing to do with basketball. It had to do with the people. It had to do with the being able to be there. And as I was there, baseball field, basketball court, whatever, as I was there were moments, countless moments, where I was able to give an explanation for the faith that's in me. I have this drive because of this. I get back up on my feet because of the resurrection, because Jesus, I'm able to share that with them in the flow that makes sense. And you can kind of see them go, I'm not trying to force anything on anybody. I'm just giving an explanation of why there's a hope in me. You're going to have that opportunity so long as we stay the course and be on mission together. It's got to be sustainable. It's got to be for a number of days, a number of months, where we're staying active in people's lives so that we can get the permission, the opportunity to be in a situation, engaged in a situation where we can explain why we have hope in Jesus. And so I hope that's helpful and kind of limits a little bit of your fear. So anyway, you've got tons of questions, not tons of questions, but enough questions that will fill the night. So enjoy your time together. Love you. Appreciate you so much for buying into what we're trying to accomplish, and which is simply just to bring the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven, to be his hands and feet. So God bless you for doing that, and I will see you on Sunday, God willing, and be blessed. Have a great conversation. See you soon.